Hello, welcome back to the channel. It's me, Emmy the Cat Lady, and you join me here. We're in the Divide in Ulysses' temple with all the nuclear missiles. This is kind of after the DLC's finished, which is why there's goo piles everywhere. So today we're going to be talking about Ulysses, the other Courier Six. Now, Ulysses is a fascinating character in this game. He plays the role of a kind of tertiary antagonist in Fallout New Vegas, as well as being the primary antagonist of the Lonesome Road DLC. But as a character, he was written originally for the main game and was intended to be a companion with a Legion alignment. But he had to be cut from the game and was then rewritten for the DLC. But he does have a very rich backstory to him. I'm going to go and find the man himself. But he does have a very rich backstory to him, and once you know all the details about where he came from and what he's done over the course of the last few years, essentially, in this world, you can really kind of see where his hand has been throughout your entire journey. Because he has been kind of there the entire time. He's an invisible ghost that's been stalking you across the wasteland and triggering various events that have a bearing on Courier Six's story. He is a man that stands firm in his beliefs and expects others to do the same, and he believes in the importance of history and understanding why you make the choices you make. But deep down, he is a lost soul in search of a place that he can call home, but he has lost hope of ever finding it, and I think you'll see what I mean as we go through it. There he is. So yeah, once you've completed the DLC, assuming that you didn't fight and kill him, when you come back here, you'll find him standing vigil over the Divide and keeping an eye on things, and you can have conversations with him about various things. So we're going to talk a bit about Ulysses' history first. So history is very important to Ulysses, and his own history is very complicated. He is a tribal and originally comes from Arizona. He was a member of the Twisted Hairs tribe that was named after their signature dreadlocks, and the hairstyles hold a lot of meaning and cultural significance for the tribe. And in the early days of Caesar's Legion, the Twisted Hairs were approached by the Legion for an alliance. The Legion sought their scouting skills in order to conquer the other tribes in Arizona. And Ulysses, who at that point went by a different name, which we don't know, but he was one of the best scouts. So the Legion liked what he did. Once that conquest was complete and the Legion had conquered all the other tribes in Arizona, at Dry Wells, the Twisted Hairs were cordially invited by Lopez and Kulta to join the Legion, by which I mean they were subjugated and enslaved just like all the others. Their culture was erased and dissidents were crucified. Not surprising, we know that's how the Legion has always kind of operated since the beginning. At this point, that's when he adopted the name Ulysses and dropped his tribal name. So he chose the name for Ulysses S. Grant, who fought to unite two warring tribes under one flag, meaning the American Civil War, of course, and he was also the 18th President of the United States. But the name is also the Latin name for Odysseus, and we will get back to that detail later because it is relevant to some of the things that we're going to be talking about.
Not my given name. Close enough. Took it from history. Found it in a book. It's an old world name. Ulysses lived a long time ago. Long before the old world set fire to itself. He made a mark without being myth.
So Ulysses went on to become a frumentarius of the Legion and played the role of a courier in order to spy and keep tabs on the happenings of the wasteland. So do remember that the Legion does have quite an extensive spy network. So it is for this reason that Ulysses would never directly kill a courier, because they could also be Legion, and Caesar forbade it, and that was a rule that he basically stuck to for quite a long time. Ulysses was also the first to cross the Colorado and see Hoover Dam and see the flag of the NCR above it. He reported it back to Caesar, and he did believe that it was going to be an omen of Caesar's downfall, while Caesar saw it as the future of his legion. The Colorado River was to be his Rubicon, and New Vegas was to be his Rome. That was what he wanted to achieve. And as we know, the Legion lost the first battle for the dam thanks to some sneaky tactics, mainly Chief Hanlon's wacky strategy that was quite effective. But the Malpace legate who led the campaign was of course blamed for this loss. Joshua Graham was set on fire and tossed into the Grand Canyon. Ulysses was present for this, and it proved that Caesar wasn't going to back down no matter the cost. But Ulysses, if you ask him, he does indicate that he has some respect for Graham and his ability to survive.
Long ago, I crossed the Colorado, the first among the Legion to see Hoover Dam in all its glory. An old world wall, yet bridging two sides. And beyond it, a symbol of a two-headed bear. An idea great enough to challenge Caesar himself. Might kill him taking it, whether he won or lost. The bull needs to fight, needs the challenge. Without it, it falters, dies in the dust.
So during his travels, Ulysses found himself in a place known as the Divide, which is this location here, essentially. And as he describes it, it was a nation taking its first breath among the symbols of the old world, all thanks to a courier that was willing to brave the dust storms, because even before what happened here with the explosions, there was a lot of the dust storms that was present beforehand, so few people were willing to make the journey, but a specific courier was. And that allowed people to settle in the Divide, separate from the two local powerful factions that were battling over Hoover Dam. And Ulysses was certain that this is where he was meant to be. It was going to be a new home for him, a fresh start, away from the Legion. But the courier's actions, unfortunately, brought the location to the attention of the NCR, who saw the potential for a second supply line to ease the traffic on the Long 15 as they continued to expand into the Mojave. And because the NCR were interested in it, of course, that brought the place into Caesar's sights as well, and they couldn't let the bear have any advantages, you know. So Ulysses fully intended to chase both bear and bull away from the Divide until the courier, which is us, the player character, brought a package from Navarro that triggered the nuclear missiles buried beneath the dirt, and the Divide was destroyed. Ulysses only survived because of some medical iBots, and he believes that they saved him because of the flag on his jacket. So you can see his duster. He's got the in-universe version of the US flag painted on his back. It's also the symbol that he paints in various places to show you the way, or show you direction to a hidden cache, or to warn you of danger, all that kind of stuff. So it's the symbolism is very important to Ulysses, as we know, and so that meant that these iBots saw him as a US soldier and treated his injuries and saved his life. So Ulysses took a very important lesson from this. One person could change history, one person could raise a new nation or destroy one. And unsurprisingly, he does blame the courier for the destruction that rocked the Divide, and he returned east and returned to the Legion, essentially.
You don't see, listen, even when it's all around you. No matter if I nailed it into your head like a gift from Caesar. You brought the Divide to life, courier. You walked the road, brought the bear, then the bull, brought me, following your tracks. And when I saw the divide you made, I saw a second chance, a new way of thinking. My world, no longer the East. And you brought the West in that package. Destroyed it all. Nearly killed me, flesh and spirit. You destroyed something larger than the bear, greater than the bull. And even when you could have turned away, you brought it again in that machine. You destroyed a nation taking its first breath. A place that could have been my home. Now, I'll destroy yours.
Of course, we're not done with his connections yet. So Caesar sent Ulysses to the Great Salt Lake, which was Salt Lake City in Utah, and his task was to rally the Whitelegs, train them for war, and unleash them upon New Canaan. And the Whitelegs were promised assimilation into the Legion contingent on their success in this campaign.
Emptiness here, like the sands of the Great Salt Lake, echoed, the beating in the divide sky, like storm drums of the Whitelegs, ran with them on the salt beds at Caesar's command. Cut the throats of the two-headed bear, cut all communities off. Use storm, sky, disease, fire, starvation, and the violence of the ignorant to ruin all who could. Might stand against him. But the Whitelegs, they couldn't live on their own like most scavengers, so gave them purpose, turned their hunger into a weapon. The wall of New Canaan, too high for Caesar, too proud maybe, or maybe something there from his past that needed killing. Memory of Graham. Helped them dig out Canaan's supply caches and other secrets the sands hid. Bunkers filled with powered weapons even the Brotherhood might desire. They call these new weapons storm drums in the firing of shells. Taught them the power in the casings to channel the spirits in their guns. Me, they called me the flag bearer. Glory in my hand, in my staff that still bore the weight of the old world, just as the symbol on my back did. I learned their weapons as a means of respect, and when it came their turn to pay respect to me, history came rushing back. Can't escape what's been done. History's there, no matter how far you walk.
The real reason that Caesar wanted this was to cripple NCR supply lines, as well as ensuring that Joshua Graham died like he was supposed to. Caesar would never admit it out loud, but he knew that Joshua Graham had survived, and his continued existence was an embarrassment that Caesar was unwilling to tolerate, so you can understand why he wanted to make sure something was done about it. So, during this process, the Whitelegs began to worship Ulysses in a way that he really disliked. They focused on him, called him their flag bearer instead of the Legion. And they started braiding their hair like his and imitating his hairstyles, which they saw as a compliment and a way of showing respect.
The Whitelegs meant to show respect, bribe me for Caesar's favor, echoing mannerisms and words. Showed them tech caches, taught them the workings of chamber and powder, spoke of Caesar's pride in those that used such things. Lies. And then they tried to honor me, not the Legion. They brought me before the campfire one night, showed me how they changed themselves, how they wore their hair now. It was like my entire dead tribe in the firelight, teeth grinning red in the dark, eager corpses, blood-covered ghosts. They had taken my braids, the way of the twisted hairs, as if it showed they were like me, of me, while every knot in their braids spoke of raping, violence, and ignorance of what the knots meant. They thought to show respect. Defiled it. Lost myself in trying to read the braids they wove. When I remembered, they had put no meaning in it. They had no history of what it meant. They didn't even know the insult in the twists, knots. And the dry wells came rushing back. The white legs circled like that. It was like looking at the dead of my tribe, reborn as ghosts, hateful, hungry, bowing to Caesar. Another history, gone, carried by me alone.
But Ulysses didn't see it this way. The braids had significant meaning, and without understanding that, it was hurtful for him. The Whitelegs didn't understand the violence that the Legion had committed against his tribe, the same violent subjugation that would be in their future. They didn't understand what the braids and knots meant, and Ulysses lamented the loss of his tribe and the loss of the history of his tribe in that regard. And I'll play the logs that kind of go into this so that Ulysses, you can hear Ulysses' own words about this. I'll put them in here, the logs that you can find. So there's several kind of voice notes that Ulysses has left for himself that you can find across the divide, and they give you an awful lot of very interesting backstory to the man. So I will intersperse them into the video where they're relevant so that you can hear them if you've never found them. But after all this happened, he returned to the Mojave, and he understood once again the impact that one single person could have on history. And he thought about the old world and realised that neither the NCR nor the Legion held the answer for how humanity should survive. So he takes a break, he settles down at Wolfhorn Ranch, keeps big corners for a while, because living off the land can certainly help you find some perspective. But after a while, Ulysses got tired of life on the ranch and returned to work as a courier. So at this point, Victor was hiring 6 couriers from the Mojave Express to carry various items to the strip. Of course, 5 of them were decoys, and the 6th contained the platinum chip. Ulysses was going to accept that job until he saw your character's name next on the list, and he was shocked that you were still alive. He assumed that you died at the divide.
All right, Courier. If the why of it matters to you. Meant to? No. Never. You're a burden. Weigh you down long enough to let death catch up to you. But you survived. There was death in that package, and while the chip is important to old world ghosts, no, you are more dangerous than that chip ever could be. Maybe why you found each other. Little piece of the old world speaking to you, waiting for you to wake something else up with it. We all have death following us. Only a question of how close. You dodged it. For a time. You're good at that. Talent for it. With that chip weighing you down. A burden. Lets death move a little faster without me pulling the trigger.
But because of this rule that Caesar had about not killing couriers in case they were Legion, he just turned down the job and insisted that you take it instead, on the assumption that the Mojave would sort you out so that he didn't have to do it and have to be the one to kill you. But the hope was that something in the Mojave would do that, and carrying that chip was going to be the end of you. And the Mojave certainly tries, as does Benny, but thankfully he survived, because otherwise Fallout New Vegas would have been the world's shortest ever video game, and wouldn't be as much fun to play as it is. So, you know, but you can see that there's so many points in your character's story that Ulysses has got involved, and there's a lot of kind of connections there going through it, which I think is amazing. You know, certainly really good in terms of writing quality. But after all this happened, Ulysses returned to his obsession with history and the old world blues, if you will. So he realised that the weather patterns that are seen at the divide, he realised that they were not natural, they were artificial. So he followed them to their source and he found his way to the Big Empty. At this point, he started leaving behind the painted flag symbols for someone that was tough enough and smart enough to understand them.
Big Empty. There's something hidden there. A crater. Past wind and sand. So deep in the desert, there's no turning back. Finding the crater was an accident. Was following the weather patterns. The divide sky torn like that. Man's violence, not nature's. That violence in the sky had a source. Tracked it, like following a river current. Left the colors to mark my way, like always. Case someone finds them, learns the pattern. The courier might. But I thought sand and wind would never end. Came to the crater. And there was an old world facility. A weather station at the edge. Still raking the sky with electricity and generators. And beyond it, saw the rest of the old world hell there. All carved up like garden plots. Had to see what was there. Couldn't leave it be. Things asleep in the Big Empty. The Brotherhood woke them up. Can't move quiet any more than the two-headed bear can. And when they woke up, it was like all of history waking up at once. Almost didn't make it out. Almost. Left with answers I never intended.
He does kind of hint that they were intended for you to find, essentially. And he found his way to the X-17 meteorological station and he got caught up in the conflict within the Brotherhood of Steel that was going on that ended up there as well. So he made contact with Elijah and was the one that told him about the Sierra Madre. Again, he's killing someone indirectly or trying to, sending people on missions he doesn't expect them to survive to keep his own hands clean. So after Elijah escaped the crater, Ulysses found and rescued Christine Royce, who was the Circle of Steel assassin sent after Elijah. He took her to the cave that he'd been hiding out in, which is called Ulysses' Point, and treated her injuries and talked with her extensively about the Brotherhood. Side note, no idea how your character knows that that's what this cave is called, that it belonged to Ulysses, but that's what it is. So, after learning more about the Brotherhood of Steel, Ulysses realised that they weren't the ones to bring back America the way he sees it either. They're not the solution he's looking for. But to say thanks for treating his injuries, she fixes up an old recorder for him so that he can leave little voice notes for himself. After that, Ulysses also goes to the brains in the think tank and has a conversation with them, particularly Dr. Klein. And they couldn't answer his questions properly and he got quite frustrated because he was unaware that Dr. Mobius had kept the brains in a recursion loop to stop them from escaping and wreaking havoc on the world outside the crater. And that's when he asked the question, "Who are you that do not know your history?" And that question woke them up and it brought back memories of America, the place they'd cared about. So they told him about the sleeping giants in the divide that still carried America's voice, which we know means the nuclear missiles across the divide and the device that could activate them. At that point, he told Christine where Elijah went and went on his own way. Dr. Mobius was kind of concerned about letting Ulysses leave with his knowledge of what makes nations and what breaks them, but he had to remove the memory of Ulysses' question to keep the brains in their loop, and that's what protects the wasteland from the think tank, and it's pretty necessary. But it did mean that Mobius had no way of scrubbing Ulysses' memories, and no way of stopping him from leaving afterwards. So he just kind of had the hope that nothing was going to go wrong because of Ulysses leaving with that information. And after this, Ulysses returned here to the Divide with the intention of using the missiles to reshape the wasteland himself. And he realised that letting the wasteland do the work just wasn't going to be enough, so he left a message for Courier 6, challenging them to come to him and knowing that they would walk roads that no other courier would.
Who are you who do not know your history? You came all this way for answers. Only currency I have, nothing else to be gained. Could turn around, walk away at any time. If history matters to you, you'll need to earn it. Any laws of mine I have already cast away in the Divide. They're lost to you. For now, find the trigger for the warheads buried in Hopeville. Use it to keep moving and keep alive. No courier would go to the Divide, but you will. And that's what sets us apart. We walk roads no other courier will walk. And for you, you'll want to see your home one last time. See what happened. You're curious. You walk, leave ruin in your path. You can't leave alone. Still, the choice is yours. What I offer is the last I offer you. I don't care if you walk the Divide. Turn, walk the Mojave, fight beneath the flags. But you will wonder. If you don't, the Divide will come to you and the Mojave. That will be my message to you, like the message you had for me. The Divide will send its worst against you. It may break you. We'll see if you're stronger. Road gets rougher from here, courier. Left marks for you. Colors will tell the way if you're smart. They'll lead you to your home one more time. Lead to the ending of it. Maybe remind you why you wander.
And if you do play through the DLC, then obviously you do walk this lonesome road. And it's very much framed as an active choice. You can ignore it, you can turn back at any point and walk away. You do have to actively choose to meet Ulysses face to face. And the outcome can go different ways. You can fight him, you don't have to. You can talk him down and decide what to do about the missiles. You do have to be pretty convincing, of course, or at least have paid attention to his voice notes and understood them. And whatever happens at the end, Ulysses recorded one last message for you in case you best him. It's found in the loot crate that's just outside the canyon wreckage after you complete the DLC. And this message explains about his reasons for what he did. The why of things, as he puts it.
Last tape, last message. In case you best me. If you're hearing this, you have, through blood or word. This message and all that lies with it. It is for you, courier. If you want to know the why of things. This world, I've walked a good part of it. I stopped only because of you. What you did gave me pause. Long ago, I crossed the Colorado, the first among the Legion to see Hoover Dam in all its glory. An old world wall, yet bridging two sides. And beyond it, a symbol of a two-headed bear. An idea great enough to challenge Caesar himself. Might kill him taking it, whether he won or lost. The bull needs to fight, needs the challenge. Without it, it falters, dies in the message is this: the destruction that has been wrought at the Divide, or elsewhere, if you couldn't stop me, it can happen again. It will keep happening. If war doesn't change, men must change, and so must their symbols. Even if it is nothing at all, know what you follow, Courier. Just as I followed you to the end. Whatever your symbol, carry it on your back and wear it proudly when you stand at Hoover Dam.
So he does mention that he's the one that sparked the conflict over Hoover Dam, as he was the first of the Legion to see it, and that the NCR was occupying it. And he mentions the weakness of the Legion, essentially that when they run out of people to fight, there's not really going to be much left for the Legion, especially if Caesar dies. And if you talk to him here, you also get some hints from him about how to talk Legate Linnaeus down, because he knows that Linnaeus is only loyal to Caesar, and he's also the one that says it might not even be the same guy underneath the mask, and that if Caesar dies, then the Legion is going to fall apart, and we know essentially that's exactly what happens. But his message is bigger than that. He has taken the concept of war never changes, which obviously any Fallout player has heard time and time again. We know that's the whole kind of point here, but he's expanded on that idea. Because what he says is, if war doesn't change, men must change, and so must their symbols. Even if it is nothing at all, know what you follow, Courier, just as I followed you to the end. Whatever your symbol, carry it on your back and wear it proudly when you stand at Hoover Dam. So we're obviously very familiar with this core theme of war never changing, but he's right that if war's never going to change, then it falls to people to decide to change instead. Creating peace, the promise of a better world, it falls to us to choose to do better than those who came before, for us to decide where we stand, follow through with it, own it and take pride in it. And if you let him live, I say, wait here just at the entrance to the Divide. You can talk to him and ask about various things. He can share crafting recipes, and sometimes you'll find things in the Divide. He'll give you like ammo and stuff. And once you've listened to his final message, you can talk to him about it. And he says that the meaning is important and it belongs to you now or to history.
Didn't think I'd be breathing to hear you say that. Message isn't important. Meaning is. Had to speak of it, in case the words got lost in paper, ink, or others' voices. Maybe even yours in time. Still meant for you. Courier to Courier. Belongs to you now. Or history. Doesn't matter.
So he's a man that's been through a lot. He's been involved in your character's story since before the events of the game. He's played a huge role in the events that have shaped the story of New Vegas. And he's been in our shadow this entire time, and then it becomes up to us to decide both his fate and the fate of the Mojave. But he's just been kind of following behind us, or ahead of us this whole time, and he's been involved in ways that we weren't really aware of. So when it comes to his personality, that's one of the things that I do find the most interesting about Ulysses, is the personality, the way he speaks and the way he thinks about things. And as we make our way through the Divide, we learn quite a lot from him and about him from the logs that he's left behind, as well as the conversations through Eddie. So at various points he will talk to you through Eddie, and you can have quite in-depth conversations with him about various subjects. And then obviously at the very end we do have then final confrontation, and you also can have another fairly extensive conversation with him at that point. So we can infer quite a lot about who he is from these moments. So he's very intelligent, he's analytical, and he's observant. He's paying attention, and he's not just paying attention to what people say and what people do. He's paying attention to all kinds of things, and looking for the reason for people to do things and looking to understand things. Not just the kind of surface stuff, but he's paying a lot of attention to why people make decisions, and that's something that I think is very interesting. And he was recruited as a frumentarius because of his scouting skills, and he understands people very, very well, which is enough to allow him to manipulate people when he needs to. So if we listen to log 1722, where he talks about the Whitelegs and how he was training them to attack New Canaan. So I will let Ulysses tell it himself, because he definitely has a way with words more than I do.
I walked the Great Salt Lake as Kaiser's eye, then his hand. Mongrels there, 2 legs and 4. Saw the walls of New Canaan and the scavengers circled. Had the strength or fire to take. Too high, too strong. White legs. They were born for war. They run to it, hungry for battle. Yet their hunger is to be a part of history, something larger. Like the Legion, as always, brought them a message from Kaiser. If New Canaan burns, Kaiser might see them. Might. Even the chance was a lie. To honor Kaiser, destroy the history of New Canaan and the way they carry it in their generations and family. Kaiser respects such strength, I told them. That was truth, even if strength wasn't the word. Obedience. You must be willing to kill anyone. Children, mothers, the weak, elders. If these New Canaanites value the generations, that is what you must kill. It was like Ulysses was speaking through me. Use the night, silence, and fire to change their words to please, to screams. No need for bombs, when hate will do. I asked the Whitelegs to destroy a people with ancestry going back thousands of years. Another death of history, lost to time. The New Canaanites. They supplied medicine, food traded with others, civilization, a hand from the past, not history, but maybe a past deeper, farther than that, to a place where this God really exists. If so, his handiwork and people belong elsewhere, not in this place. Another symbol like bear and bull, with no meaning in the present.
So it does feel like he's expressing some regret over what he's done. He certainly didn't seem to like behaving like Ulysses in this way. He even said it was like Ulysses was speaking through me. And he asked the Whitelegs to destroy a people with ancestry going back thousands of years. Another death of history, lost to time. So, he understood that the history of New Canaan and the New Canaanites wasn't even just kind of pre-war. It was a long time before the war, because the New Canaanites were what were left of the Mormons, essentially. So, it's destroy the history of New Canaan and the way they carry it in their generations and family. No need for bombs when hate will do, which is a hell of a line. And it's true that, you don't need nuclear bombs when you can just induce hatred in somebody and let them destroy each other. And that's essentially what happened there. Now, like all well-written characters, Ulysses has flaws too. He's not perfect. Nobody is. I'm sure, okay, he does have 10 across the board in his special stats, but he does have flaws. He's obsessive. Sometimes he can't see the wood for the trees because he's too busy looking for meaning in everything, that he's not necessarily paying as much attention to what's actually happening right in front of him. And he spends an awful lot of time and energy on the Courier, and he keeps returning to this obsession time and again. He wants revenge for what happened at the Divide. And he does have a degree of arrogance too. He believes himself to be more intelligent than most other people. He probably is, but he sees things his way, and if he believes someone to be too ignorant, he's not going to bother trying to change that. So that's something that can happen when you're having a conversation with him. If you deliberately or otherwise misunderstand what he's trying to say, he gets quite angry about it. Because he believes himself to be one of the most intelligent people in the room most of the time. But he is capable of changing his perspective if he's challenged, which shows a degree of character growth. And these are all factors that make interesting characters to read about or to interact with in games. Because real people have that capacity to learn and grow, and so does he. So if you kind of challenge his beliefs and say, like, one of the conversation options I think is that I saw what you learned in the Mojave, but you learned the wrong lessons. You can say that to him. You can say, like, you learned the wrong lessons here. And you can use Eddie's logs as well, which give you the background for Eddie and what happened at Navarro, because obviously it came from the Enclave and things. And he will potentially listen to you and say, "All right, okay, I see what you mean," and change his mind at the end, and then you have to try and stop the nukes, or that kind of thing. So there is that possibility, if you present him with the right kind of argument, that he can kind of accept that maybe he was wrong. If you do fail that conversation, though, he will get very angry and you will be stuck with the violent option. But his flaws make him real. This is a man that he's suffered and he has lost. He's let anger control his actions, and he's let obsession lead him to drastic choices. And that's why the ending of Lonesome Road involves him preparing to launch nukes all over again. It's about history repeating itself. And he is an antagonist, but he can be talked around, and he's worthy of respect because of that, because he is willing to accept that maybe he was going about things the wrong way and have his mind changed.
Even in this place, NCR's shadow falls. Or is it just you, Courier, without the bear's corpse to weigh you down? Judging by your shadow, maybe you can't let your machine go. Doesn't matter now. Either way, the Divide Giants are awakening. The missiles here on their way home. There is no way to stop them. You've answered your own question, and you'll die with that question on your lips. You don't see, listen, even when it's all around you. No matter if I nailed it into your head like a gift from Caesar. You brought the Divide to life, Courier. You walked the road, brought the bear, then the bull, brought me, following your tracks. And when I saw the divide you made, I saw a second chance, a new way of thinking. My world, no longer the East. And you brought the West in that package, destroyed it all, nearly killed me, flesh and spirit. You destroyed something larger than the bear, greater than the bull. And even when you could have turned away, you brought it again in that machine. You destroyed a nation taking its first breath, a place that could have been my home. Now, I'll destroy yours. No. Now there is purpose. I believe you when you say you were careless. The divide, the chip, the machine you brought here. Many messages can be taken from that, intended or not. What I do now is an act of conviction. Blame you? No. Learned from you. Both the weapon to kill a nation and the strength to do it. You showed me a road, a way to carry my message. You've already answered for what you've done. Now the flag you follow will answer for it. No, not the Mojave. The West. All that's been built since America died. Same symbols as before the war. Now a flag carried by a tribe of children. You walked the West, didn't stay. You know the reason. The bear grows without structure, follows a symbol without knowing its history. And knowing that you believe in a bear's sickness and have given it strength, and that gives more reason to lay waste to your homeland. After this, only one flag will remain over the Mojave. Let that one fly, or destroy itself. No need to destroy the bear. Just cut its throat. You taught me that at the divide. Only need to cut off the supply line, the road, to watch something greater die. I'll turn the long 15 into miles of fire. Cut off the Mojave. NCR will fall back, lose Hoover Dam, and leave their throats exposed to the Legion. Your actions have carried strength. If you speak for the two-headed bear, I'll hear your words, even if I will be the only one to hear them. If you believe it should not die this day, then answer me why. Comes down to perspective, how far one's walked, and what they've left behind. If you challenge this moment, let's hear your perspective. If my words are all you have, let's hear them. That question. Either you walked the big empty, you found the last of the holotapes. The words are mine. Whatever answer you think they hold, you're wrong. It was a question, nothing more. I spoke those words in anger. I did not expect an answer. All was lost. I thought it was the end. Past their graves of failed technology, they had cared about the flag they had followed and the people beneath it, even with them dead and gone. But there's no answer in that. I do this because I care, because I believe it must be done. Those are my words. After what happened with the Brotherhood, talking with them, then with the rulers of the big empty. But it is their philosophy that was flawed, their weapons used with new perspective. Those weapons can be used to kill a symbol that has already proven itself wrong. as you defend it now. Nothing can prevent what comes. The missiles will launch. These questions, your words or mine, what do they matter to you? It may be that as much destruction has been written in the earth here. One buried this place, yet it lived on between us. One may build it again, build others. Your history has proven this here. There's truth in your words, but even if there's hope in change, it may not matter. The divide still stands against us. Our enemies gather outside, shadows of the bear and a bull. They will have found their way in, just as you did. It was always my intention. In case I could not kill you, the marked men would flood this place, cut off your escape. If we cannot prevent what comes, then let us make our stand here. Two couriers together at the divide.
Before we kind of conclude the deeper parts of his personality and character, I do want to talk a bit about his beliefs and his philosophies, because he does have opinions on most of the factions in the game, and I think it's very interesting that he doesn't like any of the options for controlling Vegas. So we're going to get into the different factions and the beliefs that he has about them, of the ones that he's interacted with. So first of all, the Brotherhood of Steel. So he sees the roads that they walk as a dead end. He doesn't think that their technology can solve anything, and their obsession with it is going to be an ongoing problem. And the Big Empty, to his mind, shows where that road leads.
Back again. Left that crater behind. Got a few holotapes left. One's from the medical center. The woman, she fixed the recorder. Said it wouldn't last. Repayment for me, fixing her. She doesn't like debts. Can respect that. Payment enough, just to hear someone who believes in the Brotherhood of Steel. Not Elijah. Different view. Same madness. She answered me on their philosophy, their way of seeing, the roads they walk. Dead ends. Empty. As if technology can solve anything. Big Empty's proof where that road leads. Just like the divide, and all the roads that lead to it.
He does refer to Christine's beliefs as a different view, but the same madness as Elijah. He does respect her more, especially because she fixed up the recorder to repay him for his aid. She doesn't like own anyone, and he feels the same, so it's this kind of mutual, like, you did something for me, so I have to do something for you, because I don't like feeling like I owe anyone anything. But he rightfully clocked Elijah as a dangerous person, enough that he had the wisdom, I think, to not confront him directly, instead sending the man on what would hopefully be a one-way trip to the Sierra Madre. He expected it to swallow him whole like it has had for so many others, and generally speaking, that's exactly what happens. Log 1716 tells us what he found when he went to the Big Empty, and he spoke to the brains and compared them to old stories about gods and men, history and mythology, where the gods behave like children, petulant and cruel, which is interesting considering this is not too different from how the Legion came to be.
Have you ever wanted to speak to history? Just to know the why of it? I don't. Not any longer. There's old stories about gods and men, past history into myth, where the gods, they're like children, petulant, cruel. Those were the voices of the Big Empty. The past couldn't leave well enough alone. Had to ask the why of it. Their answers were madness, and power stronger than me. Would take 100 Elijahs, someone tougher than him or I, to best them in their dome. They didn't know why they were there, what had led to that point. Their names, like serpents devouring themselves, cannibalizing their own thoughts. When all seemed lost, thought it was the end, my anger gave me strength to ask them my last question. Who are you that do not know your history? And they awoke, for a short time. The flag you wear, they said, we remember. America. It wasn't just a flag to them. It was a place, an idea they had cared for. Once, they told me what it was like to grow in that world. All they had done to lift it up, protect it. They didn't know it was gone. That, yet, they had cared once, before forgetting their history. As they were talking, kept seeing the courier's shadow behind them, giving each their words weight. History cast aside, a home left behind. I listened. I asked, was there anything left? Anything that still carries America's voice? And they told me I had already been there. I and one other, walking right out of history, deeper than we knew. They told me what lies in the heart of the divide, what can be found there, and the words to awaken it, and the one to speak them.
And he realised their madness and their power, and he even makes connections about their names, comparing them to serpents devouring themselves and cannibalising their own thoughts, which is the Ouroboros. And all of the brains' names are based on some kind of infinite loop, like Dr. Boris comes from the Ouroboros, Dr. 8, which is the infinity symbol, Dr. Mobius, the Mobius strip. So the Ouroboros is a symbol of infinity. It's the eternal cycle of life, death and rebirth, and in literature it is often used to describe an endless self-consuming cycle, like a destructive pattern that feeds upon itself. Kind of like war never changes, is it not? An endless repeating cycle of destruction that no matter how far we evolve or advance, we still return to the fighting and destructive ways. And it's a strong connection to the saying that those who don't learn history are doomed to repeat it. And he woke up the brains briefly by asking about their history. So it is all a very interesting kind of loop that, these same themes that keep coming back. And on to his opinion of the Legion. So for a man who was originally intended to be a Legion-affiliated companion and a former frumentarius, he's really not that keen on them.
Can hear the weight in your feet. You're bound for that old world wall, Hoover Dam. Maybe not now. In time. Bear and bull shed too much blood there to let it go. Can't stop you from going. Wouldn't. A warning, though. The legate Linnaeus, whether Caesar stands or not, Linnaeus will come. Linnaeus, the butcher, monster, terror of the East. Not even his slaves have seen his face. Struck them blind so they can't. Wears a mask. Don't even know if it's the same man. He put Colorado to the sword. Broke the hangdogs by throwing their hounds upon the flames, so they might burn forever in the afterlife. To take Hoover Dam, Legion will need something as big as the old world itself. Another symbol forged by history. Linnaeus carries all the terrors of the East with him. He's the myth, the weapon the Legion needs. When he arrives, he'll fall on Hoover Dam like a hammer. Break the bear in two. His strength lies in his title, and it is his weakness. He will not fight a losing battle and destroy what he represents. Put the idea of loss in him. Convince him the bear will not be the 20th tribe beneath his heel. It will make him pause like nothing on earth. You do not need to convince him alone. Draw upon history. The past of other legates are not filled with victories. Remind Linnaeus of this. There are other legates, and the one before Linnaeus couldn't take Hooverdam for Kaiser. That legate's mistake is he didn't die trying. His name was Joshua Graham, answered for his failure. Twice, some say. Kaiser had him burned and cast into the earth, into the largest canyon you've ever seen. Watched the flames trail all the way to the bottom. Somehow, Joshua walked away from that, went beyond Kaiser's gaze. His footsteps trailing fire, walking from one hell, maybe to another. When one is ruined like Graham was, sometimes home is the only place left. If so, he went to New Canaan, Kaiser's anger written on him like a book. Kaiser's orders to the Frumentari were to watch for him, find Graham, kill him. Didn't try. Could've. No good would have come of it. Graham earned his life and his nature. It'll kill him more surely than any blade of the Legion. So, if you've heard word of it or seen sign of him, let it keep. Let his history keep. And there is nothing more to be done. The Mojave awaits.
He has more respect for the Legion than he does for the NCR, but he knows a fundamental truth about the Legion that we have discussed before, and Caesar is what keeps the Legion together. They've only succeeded so far because they all follow him and believe him to be all-powerful, they idolise him and they treat him as a deity. And without him, the Legion's going to fall apart into warring tribes. Ulysses is clever enough to see this, and that's exactly what happens. He also knows that only Caesar can keep Legate Linnaeus in check, as the Legate is a warmonger that's only loyal to Caesar. He holds no love for the Legion, and he has no interest really in nation building. So Ulysses will accept Caesar's death as necessary if it happens during the events of New Vegas. As it, in his mind, it will prove that Caesar wasn't strong enough to succeed. That is a conversation that you can then have with Ulysses if you kill Caesar, or if you let him die during the brain surgery or whatever. You can have that conversation with Ulysses and you can tell him what happened. But when it comes to the NCR, he really dislikes the NCR. He compares them to their flag, so you have two heads that are trying to go in different directions and ending up going nowhere.
There's your signal. Faint, but there. Just like NCR. Voice without fire, without strength, sick. Heard tales of you walking the Mojave, giving the two-headed bear strength, giving hollow men like Kimball, like Crocker, half the life Hanlon had. Now, let's test that strength, that conviction, Courier. No, not new. And not new among all those in the shadow of the bear. You know their flag. A bear with two heads. Symbols an old world one. Had one head then. Better off for it. Their flag speaks to their spirit. They're split like any two-headed animal. Trying to go in different directions. Ending up nowhere. In the Mojave. That'll only get you sand between your fingers, or over your grave.
Because he thinks that they got greedy, they expanded too fast and stretched themselves too thin to adequately protect their borders against the Legion. Seems pretty accurate to me. And they're killing people by trying to protect them, and I think it's interesting that Chief Hanlon kind of sees the same thing, that the NCR have stretched their resources too far, and that's why he thinks that the campaign against the Legion is doomed, which is why he tried to sabotage the campaign. He wanted to try and push the NCR and the powers that be to turn back and leave it because it was too much for the NCR to cope with.
There you are. You went quiet for a time. Knew killing the bear wouldn't prove easy. You and your machine. You survived. There's a lesson here in the divide. Old world history about paving and intentions could teach the Republic a thing or two, if they listened. They have an idea of trying to do what's right, never quite getting there. Maybe you've seen it, nipped it, elsewhere. Yes, and any courier could tell you the same. See it everywhere. The bear. Bear's too busy carving up the Mojave with knives, roads, borders, and how things should be, to see how it is. They're stretched thin, can't protect their front lines, their towns. Think paper's power, radio means control. All of it useless. No matter now, Bear couldn't hold the divide. You and that machine are all that remains of NCR here. Rest fell to radiation, fire, and what burrows below.
But Ulysses has kind of picked up on that as well, and that is something that is pretty clear, that the NCR are just bitten off more than they can chew in the Mojave, and they're potentially going to pay the price for it, even if they win the second battle of Hoover Dam. It doesn't mean that they're going to be able to hold it in the long term necessarily. And because he doesn't like the Legion or the NCR, but he really doesn't like the other two options either. He doesn't trust the Courier and Yes Man to rule New Vegas properly because of what happened at the Divide. He says that the lights blind people and make them forget themselves and their convictions, and he's not entirely wrong about that. The bright lights and the slot machines promise pleasure and wealth, but gambling is always going to be a risk, and that's always been the thing about Vegas, both in this game and in the real world as well. The house is always going to win in terms of gambling, and you're far more likely to lose than you are to make a profit when you're gambling, unless you're cheating. That's just the way it's set up. But Mr. House, he sees as a relic of the old world, and he holds House responsible for letting the world burn in nuclear fire and only protecting Vegas, which is not entirely wrong, although, one man can only do so much, even someone like Mr. House. But House wants to reforge the world the way he thinks it should be, and he never really intended to save the world, only what he wanted to preserve. But I don't think it was really ever in Mr. House's power to prevent the nukes entirely. There was too much going on behind the scenes that he couldn't control. He was the richest man in America, but he still had limitations. And his prediction within 15 years, it didn't really give him a lot of time to necessarily be able to protect the whole country. And I doubt that he would have been able to, because certainly my understanding from everything, and this is taken into account a lot of what we've learned in season 2 of the TV show, is that, the Enclave have been up to no good behind the scenes for a while before the bombs fell, and it does seem like Mr. House doesn't really know necessarily that the Enclave exist or what kind of power or function they actually have, so we'll have to see what happens going forward. But he didn't even manage to fully protect the Mojave, because the perfect defense was missed by a day because the platinum chip delivery was delayed. But the Enclave were up to all kinds of shenanigans behind the scenes, and that's what Mr. House doesn't really necessarily. We don't know how much he knew of that and how much he suspected that. He was a very clever man, but there is a limit to what one person can achieve. When you've got a government that's had hundreds of years of doing shady things without anybody knowing about it.
House spoke, acted through machines. Sometimes can judge a man by his messengers. Sometimes the messengers judge him. Wonder what happens to Vegas now. The tribes, families. We'll see. What you did was for the best. The old world died long ago. Anyone who believes they can make it return, and everything will be as it was. It is a dangerous belief. Needs to be silenced before their belief spreads. Let House sleep in his chamber. Let him dream of the old world he remembers, and keep those memories where they belong, in his head.
And you might be wondering why Ulysses cares so much. He's travelled quite a lot, probably far more than most people in the Wasteland have travelled, but he's seen his own tribe used and destroyed. He was the first to see the dam. He's been to the Big Empty. He sent Elijah to the Sierra Madre, which means he must have heard at least some stories about the Sierra Madre to be like, yeah, I'll send him there and he'll end up dead and it'll protect the Wasteland from him, kind of thing. And he's also indirectly responsible for the inciting incident of the game for your character, because it was his refusal to take the chip that led to you being shot in the head and robbed and buried in a shallow grave. He's been stalking us from the shadows this entire time, and through what happened in the Divide, he's seen the impact that one person can have on making or breaking a society, because your player character is apparently the reason that there was a new society forming in the Divide, as well as being responsible for destroying it before it could properly take hold by bringing that package from Navarro, from the Enclave. And it does make me wonder why Eddie was sent there at all. Was it specifically to detonate the buried warheads? Was it to help them take control of the nuclear facilities in Ashton and Hopeville? Because obviously the Enclave are former government, which means that they would have records of all military and government facilities across the country. There is absolutely no way that the Enclave didn't know what was here. But for Ulysses personally, I think a big part of it is that he mourns the loss of his tribe and their history. The Twisted Hairs were recruited to help the fledgling Legion, and as soon as everything else had been conquered, they were betrayed, they were enslaved, and their identity was destroyed. Vulpes and Culta was like this, behind this, and this happened at Dry Wells, and that's how the Legion operates. And they basically erase any kind of previous culture or any beliefs or any, just practices that a tribe would have to hang on to their identity. All that gets stripped away by the Legion. So Ulysses alone carries their history and he mourns the loss of it. And that's why he took the name Ulysses after Ulysses S. Grant, who fought, as he says, fought during the time of two flags and had to make them one. But Ulysses is also the Latin name for Odysseus, who was the legendary Greek hero of Homer's epic poem, The Odyssey, who masterminded the Trojan horse that allowed the Greek army to sneak into Troy. And Odysseus is known for being the voice of reason and having self-restraint and diplomatic skills. So it's a very interesting choice that he's chosen this name specifically that represents someone that was important during the American Civil War and was obviously an important person in US history because he was a president as well. But also the same name applies to this hero that had brilliant tactics to win a war. It's a very, very interesting choice of name, and every well-written character has a strong desire and an unmet need that informs their choices. And Ulysses' desire is to see a better world that came before than the one that came before, to learn the lessons of history and avoid repeating them, and he wants people to understand their history as well, which is why he gets upset when the Whitelegs start copying his braids, because they were so ignorant of the meaning behind the braids. And they were just emulating someone that they idolised. But because he has a strong belief in symbols, but the knowledge and belief behind the symbols matter just as much as the symbols themselves in his mind. And to me, Ulysses' unmet need is having a home, somewhere that he feels like he belongs, because his old tribe are gone. He was disillusioned with the Legion, and he sees no future in any of the 4 choices for control of New Vegas. He thought the Divide was going to be the place for him until that was also destroyed as well, and that's what put him on this path of vengeance, wanting to hold the Courier accountable for their actions and pay the price for destroying the most promising future he knew of. So that's kind of the reason behind all of this, that he does the whole performance with, talking to you through the robot and saying, come and face me, we need to have an ending to things, is because he wants revenge, because what he thought was his best hope for having a home was taken away, and he blames you for it. And I think there's a quote from the final log that really sums it up very nicely, because it shows us his belief and understanding of symbols, of history, and of not repeating the mistakes of the past, and challenging the view that war never changes. So my message is this: the destruction that has been wrought at the Divide or elsewhere, if you couldn't stop me, it can happen again, it will keep happening. If war doesn't change, men must change, and so must their symbols. Even if it's nothing at all, know what you follow, Courier. Just as I followed you to the end, whatever your symbol, carry it on your back and wear it proudly when you stand at Hoover Dam. And to me, that means that deep down, he really wants to see someone build a better world than what came before, to know history, to know the why of things, and to believe in your own reasons for doing what you do. Know what you follow, own your choices, and hold up your own beliefs. And he does believe in using symbols, but they should be used with the knowledge and understanding of what they mean, which is why, as we said, he reacted badly to the Whitelegs emulating his hairstyle, because they didn't know the meaning behind it. And he does use these symbols to communicate, so the flag symbols are painted all over Big Mountain Crater and the Divide, with red meaning danger, white meaning a pathway forward, and blue indicating hidden caches of loot. He wears the flag on his back, he carries the flagpole, and he even refers to and is aware of the old world California flag, where the bear only has the standard number of heads, which is of course 1. And the fact that at the end you get gifted this duster, which has a different symbol and different properties depending on which faction you're more aligned with in the game. So you can have... this character is kind of NCR aligned, so that's why I've got the NCR's flag. But, so you get given the flag to wear on your back. He uses the flagpole as a weapon. It all means a lot to him, and it's very, very interesting to see his thoughts on that. And I really do find him such a fascinating character. Every log and conversation, we learn a little bit more about him, and he's firm in his beliefs, but he is willing to listen and learn. It's not easy to talk him down because he is so sure of his own perspective, but to me that's what makes him more compelling. And certainly in my journey as an author, getting really into understanding characters and looking at these characters and what makes them so interesting and appealing, because characters that are just perfect and never do anything wrong and know everything and can do anything, they're boring. You're going to get bored of them. Characters, real interesting, compelling characters, have flaws, and they have, traits that you might find unlikable. But having that complexity and then having that capacity for, a character arc, and not all character arcs have to be positive either. You can have like a fall from grace where somebody is doing really, really well and then they make a big mistake and everything ends up terrible. That's also a satisfying character arc. But for a lot of characters, having the capacity to grow and change and overcome their flaws is what makes a compelling story, and I think Ulysses definitely does bring that to this, because he does, yeah, because he does have that capacity to learn and change his mind on things, and to have a little bit of growth. He starts out as an antagonist, and he's been kind of a bit of an antagonist for the character even before we ever hear his name or hear his voice. Which he does have a brilliant voice. The voice actor is really, really good as well. I have to say, I really find it a very enjoyable performance to listen to as well. But the fact that you can match him and you can challenge him and he can become a friend essentially, and that's what's happened here. I completed the DLC on the peaceful side, nobody got nuked, and Ulysses is alive, and he's kind of become a friend, and you can just come back and you can talk to him and he'll give you stuff. And he'll just hang out here as well. And I do think it would be interesting to know what he would have been like as a companion in this game, because obviously he was supposed to be the Legion affiliated companion, and they had to cut that out, so there is no Legion affiliated companion in Fallout New Vegas. So the version and everything about him had to be rewritten to fit into a separate story that was being told in Lonesome Road. And I think the version we got was potentially quite different from what had originally been intended, but I do like what we got with Lonesome Road. I think it really finishes off this story of these two couriers that walk the same roads. In my mind, he's definitely one of the best written characters in all of Fallout, and he takes one of the core themes of the series and he challenges it in a new way. And I think that's something that I would love to see more of in games in general, is, having these interesting, messy, complicated characters and interacting with them in these ways. I mean, don't get me wrong, sometimes games are, there's a bad guy, shoot the bad guy, that is fine, but it's one of the reasons that people say they love New Vegas so much, and it's certainly not something that I disagree with. I definitely agree, is the writing quality, because it's not just about the words, it's about taking these characters and giving them extra dimensions, giving them things that people can relate to, and giving them flaws, and giving them something to potentially be changed, something for them to, an opportunity for them to grow, or an opportunity for them to fall from grace, and giving them that extra dimension. Because if you have characters that are just perfect and everything's great, they're just like cardboard cutouts. They don't really add anything to the story, and they don't make for an interesting, compelling character. And when it comes to endings especially, endings have to be earned and they have to be satisfying. It doesn't mean they always have to be good, it doesn't always have to be a happily ever after, but it has to feel like it's been earned, and it has to satisfy the original question that the story was posing. And I feel like with Ulysses, whichever outcome you choose, even if you choose the violent end and you kill him, you still feel like you've gone on this journey and you've earned that ending. And for whatever kind of character you're playing as, that outcome is what would have been inevitable because of the decisions that were made. And that's what makes it so compelling, in my opinion. That's why I think Ulysses is one of my favourite characters in all of Fallout. He's just so well written, such a fascinating history and personality. And I say the design, I think, is really, really good. He's got the duster with the flag on his back, and if you've played Lonesome Road, you might have noticed, I'm pretty sure I did manage to get a wee clip of it, there are a couple of points throughout the Lonesome Road DLC where you can see him watching you in the distance, so he's actually following you. He's staying very far away, but he's kind of watching you in the distance, which I think is really interesting. If because you might just notice it, you just catch a glimpse and think, oh, it's there. It's just, everything about him I think is just fascinating, and it's really, really well done. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that deep dive. into one of my favourite characters. As always, I would love to hear your thoughts on everything. What do you think of Ulysses? Have you played Lonesome Road? And what kind of ending did you choose? That kind of thing. But hopefully you've found this enjoyable, and I'll see you guys next time with something else.